What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Baseball Podcast. We are live at the Light, the Alex Rodriguez Suite. Got practice going on in the background about the scrimmage. Got my man Sebastian Font, our baseball insider. We'll be bringing all kinds of covers, more covers than we ever had on the baseball team this season as we get started. It's an exciting time. Sebastian, man, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling great, man. It's less than, I think, 3 weeks before opening day against – I'm just so excited, man. It's gonna be fun.
Valentine's Day opening day. Sebastian's already negotiating with his girlfriend to see if he can make it out here. We'll see. I think I already lost that negotiation in my house. So we'll see how it goes. Got people joining us here. We'll take your questions here on the live stream. We're talking about some position battles, the rotation, who's going to be where. I think we got a lot of players in the house now. It's where do they fit on the bus. We'll be talking about that. But first, word from some of the best friends the Canes baseball has.
Sala, Astorita & Cox is a boutique law firm focusing on securities regulatory matters, broker-dealer and investment advisor regulation, white-collar criminal defense, complex commercial litigation, and securities arbitration and litigation. The firm aggressively represents clients throughout the nation. Our lawyers have over 100 years of collective experience handling securities and white-collar criminal matters, including investigations, regulatory proceedings, and enforcement actions in federal, state, and administrative courts. We have also handled investigations conducted by congressional subcommittees. The firm's partners draw from past experience working at the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Department of Justice, a national brokerage house, and on Wall Street. Their in-depth experience includes representing clients with matters involving securities regulation, white-collar criminal defense, and securities arbitration and litigation. Contact us now at 561-989-9080 or visit us online at salalaw.com.
All right, we are back. Got Canes Cat Heat 305 saying, hype us up. I'm excited, man. We're going to see the scrimmage. Yeah, scrimmage is about an hour and a half away. Just seen some practice, but we have seen practices, fall ball. We were here, me and Sebastian. One of us was here pretty much every fall scrimmage. I was at practice last week. Sebastian's been here. He was a walk-on. For those who don't know, walk-on on the team. This past summer, worked with the guys. Was really able to get an inside view, and now pursuing his journalism career here with us, and as a student, a freshman student at the University of Miami. So you're not going to get a more inside take on what's going on with the Canes. No shake tasting today, unfortunately. They're bringing in the stuff, though. I see them getting the vendors ready. Everybody's getting ready for the season. So, Sebastian, big picture. Just being around the team, being around the strength and conditioning, which I know was a major eye-opener for you. What's the personality of this team and the feeling inside the building?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good group of veteran guys and a lot of new guys. And I think that brings a nice balance where you have a lot of hungry guys that are just wanting to make an impact, get out there. But the veteran guys that can, calm them down and just really reel them in and use that just energy a lot more effectively. And off a season like we had last year, right, everyone's hungry. The fans are hungry. The coaching staff wants to improve. The players want to improve. And I think that all of that adds up for what could be a really exciting season.
So look, the floor is low. We saw the worst season since Elvis Presley was on top of the charts last year. So it can only go up from there. I think it will. Talking to people around the program and just my own observations, it seems the floor has risen, and you're not going to have what you had last year, barring some crazy run of injuries. But I do think you will see a much better floor. Now the question is, how high can it get? Obviously, the expectations here are Omaha. Certainly you want to get back into the tournament and get to at least that point. And I think, look, my impression, talking to people from what I've seen, you have a lot of the right players on the bus, but a lot of it now is who is on what seat of the bus, whether it's which reliever is going to develop into a starter, the infield, how it's going to shake out. So, just in terms of the players added, before we even get to where they're going to be placed, which is what we're going to talk about mostly today, what are some of the talented players that have entered the program?
Yeah, obviously we've had a lot of change in the program from last year. I mean, just in the starting field, the only two guys you might see from last year are Cuvée and Dorian Gonzalez. And when it comes to the guys that are added, right, I think that they wanted to build around Cuvée and really just protect him in the lineup, not make it so that teams can intentionally walk him and pitch around him. He's going to get pitches to hit because he has guys around him that can hit, whether it's Max Galvin, Todd Hudson, or just anyone in this lineup has a much better chance at doing a job than last year's lineup.
So we got a question here from Nathan. Any stream of the scrimmage or any way to get updates? I should be out here, so I might be putting some updates out on Twitter. Sebastian's been posting a lot of updates. I don't know if we'll do it during the game, during the scrimmage, maybe on Canes Insight. So if you want to keep track with all this stuff, whether during the scrimmage or after, canesinsight.com, the forums is the place to be. All free, most active baseball forum on the planet. So we talked a little bit about where guys fit, and I want to just jump into that because you start with the starting rotation. You're losing Gage Zeal to the New York Yankees. Herrick Hernandez on his way to the Braves, already in the system there. Ray Schlesinger with the Cleveland Guardians. So you lose 3 starting pitchers to the 4th round of the MLB draft. That's a lot to replace. Production, maybe aside from Gage, you didn't have the ace level production from those guys based on their draft position, but certainly the talent is out the door there. So in terms of guys that might step up, we talked to Nick Robert today with the media availability. I think it's telling that he was the person that they put first. JD mentioned him as a weekend starter. So a lot of energy seems to be going towards Nick Robert, last year's closer, as a true freshman entering the starting lineup.
Yeah, so he obviously pitched a lot last year when, in all honesty, he probably shouldn't have. He got thrown into that role and really kind of just had to fight and just keep going along with it. But this year he's going to be moved back into the starting role, which JD and the coaching staff feel that is going to be a lot better for him. He pitches a lot to contact. He has good defense behind him. And his velocity has seen an uptick, right? He's sitting around 95, 96. And again, you could attest that to Nick Soto. I mean, this staff and everyone can't say enough about him. And Robert's a guy that is, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, he's going to be able to pitch the contact, get guys out, and just really just demoralize the lineup with, they think that they're going to have a nice hit. They put a nice piece of barrel on it, and then it's just a roll over to third base.
Yeah, he looked leaner to me. He said he's put on 5 pounds of muscle. You mentioned the velocity uptick. We're watching the highlight here from last year against Pitt. Mentally, I feel good about Robert because we saw him so many times in tough spots last year come in as a freshman. I don't think he was the highest rated freshman by any stretch in the class, but he ended up playing more than really anybody except for Cuvée, of course. Yet he managed playing shortstop. And in terms of affecting wins and losses, Robert was your second best freshman besides Cuvée. And it's just, again, just seeing him, he looks like a starting pitcher. This is a big, big dude. He can play in the ACC. So that's an exciting one to watch. You heard JD mention that maybe some of our better defenders might come into the game when Nick Robert is pitching because he pitches to contact. So you're talking about the field, which we'll be talking about. Some of the defense first kind of guys might get a little more opportunities with Robert on the mound as opposed to a guy like Walters. You Canes cat, he 305 mentioned he's 6'6". He definitely looks the part of 6'6".
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence in this clubhouse, in the ballpark, about the pitching rotation, especially the starting rotation. You have maybe 3 or 4 guys that can be competing for a weekend starter spot. And I know that a lot of people maybe outside the clubhouse, a lot of people are not really sold on it, but being here at the scrimmages, you could see that these guys, especially the starting pitching staff, is really coming together.
Got a question from Professor Rosenthal. Saw him out at a practice. Appreciate his participation here. He's saying, is Dominguez the new hitting coach going to coach third base? Have you heard anything on that one?
I think he might be coaching third base. I remember when he used to be here, he was in and around third base. And obviously with Fenster leaving, he coached third base. He probably will most likely slot into that third base coach role.
There you go. So we saw him out here. He's out there as the team gets ready to scrimmage. So big dude, you can tell he has that major league background, which is going to help. Certainly having been through it, right? He's seen the best. He's played for the Giants, I believe. So he's been around. Rich Andrews asking, I feel like the Canes have been riddled with losing top talent to MLB from high school that were deciding between Major League Baseball and Miami over the last decade. I mean, certainly the case. You can make an all-star team with some of the guys that were signed to the Miami Hurricanes and didn't ultimately go. I mean, just off the top, in the past years, I'm thinking of Yelich, I'm thinking of Correa. I mean, talk about superstar caliber players. We've gotten some of those guys on campus. I think some of it now is getting the most out of them while they're here. I mean, Rosario is the classic example. He came out, I want to say he was top 50 or something in the Baseball America top 100. He was certainly in the top 100. And those of us who saw him here in Miami on this field wasn't as productive here. I got a text from a friend who's a Rangers fan, like, man, who's this guy? Like, what happened to him in Miami? So part of it is, yes, you want to make sure that you get more talent on campus, but we got to get something going from the guys that we got here. Got a couple guys that did have major league interest. In terms of, Brandon Godey, I heard did have some interest. The Puerto Rican, I don't mess up the
Adrian
Arizaga. He was drafted by the Reds. He's out here. We just saw him, big looking shortstop. You had Mikey Torres had some interest, a center fielder. He had a chance to potentially go pro at center field. So he comes back. He gets on campus. Lachi Collazo, the right-hander, he's out here. So a few guys that had some interest from the major leagues made it.
And I think that with the last couple years of recruiting class, especially the ones that we've struggled with, we've gotten some really high recruits, but then lost them to the draft. And then to fall back on it, we didn't really have guys that could be that middle range, those mid rounds where they kind of think about going, think about staying. And we would essentially be a top-heavy class that would get taken by the draft and be left with the remaining guys. And I think that with this year especially, you saw that a lot of the guys were in draft considerations in the lower rounds and essentially decided to stay because either they were drafted just a bit too late or they really wanted to come and be part of this baseball program. And I think that especially as it's been added with NIL, this and that, there's going to be a lot of more guys coming here and the recruiting pattern that we're having. But these lower mid-round draftable prep prospects that can come to campus and really explode like a Mikey Fernandez, which we've just been talking about nonstop.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But while we're getting in the starting lineup, there's some guys here that have MLB aspirations. One of them being Brian Walters, who went to the MLB draft combine, threw the ball very, very well. I believe he was drafted late. I think it was drafted 16th, 17th round around there.
I think it was the Mariners.
The Mariners took him. So he chose to come back to Miami and show what he can do as a starting pitcher. So Brian Walters, as he makes that transition, and hearing JD talk this afternoon, right after he mentioned Nick Robert, he mentioned Walter. So he's clearly eyeing him as one of the weekend type starters. What do you see from him as he makes that transition?
Yeah, Walters, I mean, he's basically the veteran of this team, right? Whether it's through his brother, through being here. He's a guy that has a lot of experience and is going to bring that leadership on the pitching side of the field, right? And he impressed many scouts, impressed many of the people watching in the fall with how well he's throwing the ball coming off of injuries back in the day. He's throwing mid to high 90s, and that's something that you really desperately need in this team.
You see it right there, throwing 96, punch out Louisville. He had a really dramatic return here to the mound, and this team does need some power in the starting lineup, in the pen. So the fact that this guy came back from potentially going to the professional level and has stayed healthy, knock on wood, is extremely, extremely encouraging. Another guy that's got some MLB buzz is Griffin Hugas. Now, Griffin Hugas from Cincinnati. This is a South Florida guy from Palm Beach. Goes to Cincinnati. He's a two-way player. Plays some infield, plays some shortstop. Also a relief pitcher. Now shifting more towards pitching only. Ends up transferring to Miami in the offseason. Went to the Cape after he already picked Miami. And at the Cape, he was outstanding. You see the quote here. I'll read it for everybody. 6'3" right-hander will take his talents to South Beach this fall, and talents they are indeed. He hides the ball well and challenges batters with 3 pitches in the zone. Hugas has the look of a day 2 draft pick. So this is D1 baseball on Griffin Hugas after he signed with Miami while he was at the Cape, and he dominated. So guy with the arrow pointing up as he transitions from two-way to only pitching, and from relief pitching to the starting lineup.
Yeah, obviously he comes in with an absolutely huge arm. I mean, you see him warm up with long toss. They have to open up the fence just so he could just air it out there. When you're in the box against him, the ball is almost rising. That's how much of arm action he gets on it, how much of the spin rate he gets on his fastball. And between the fall and now, he's looked really good. A lot of scouts really liked how he's attacked hitters, even his off speeds. They've really liked it. And when it comes to whether he's a starter or reliever, I think he fits both profiles, right? You could take a bit off and be a starter, really pitch to contact, that type of thing. Or you could put him in the pen and just have him rev it up and be that type of flamethrower that we kind of really need in this team.
Let's talk about relievers shifting to the starting rotation. One guy that comes into Miami with a lot of starting experience, that is left-hander Rob Evans, the transfer from Georgia State, originally from New York City. I have some, inside information on this recruitment. From what I understand, he was attention through a connection in Major League Baseball who works with African-American players, trying to get them in the pipeline to the major leagues. And that contact identified Evans as a guy with a lot of ability who would flourish in the ACC. So Miami was able to make that connection, bring him down. Saw him pitch a couple last week, first time in a while because he was a little injured during fall. So you didn't see him that much during fall, but he did pitch last week. And low 90s, very athletic. He looks like he's leaned down a little bit. What can you tell me about Rob Evans as a person and what he brings to the rotation?
Yeah, he brings so much energy to the clubhouse. He's a really fun guy. I mean, everyone in that clubhouse will tell you about Rob and how fun he is to be around. And on the mound, the energy is the same way, right? He's going to attack hitters. He wants to get them out. He wants to hype the dugout up. He, even just being injured, right? He was still in the clubhouse every day. Energy, energy, energy. He's that type of guy. And I think that obviously being a left-handed arm, it's going to be really key to this team, right? You've got 3 guys in contention for a weekend spot when you might want to give the nod to Rob as the lefty, right? Whether it's on the Sunday. And just great arm side run, great off speeds. I mean, what more can you ask from a lefty starter?
Yep. We got a comment from Kristen Cleveland. I don't know if there's any relation to Jackson Cleveland, but we're going to talk about the bullpen, but I want to talk about him in particular because his velocity seems at a higher level than what I expected coming in. You hear J.D. Arteaga talk about Cleveland in interviews. He compares him to Danny Graves, which, of course, Canes baseball fans on this show know what that comparison means as far as impact. We're talking about major talent. You can get Danny Graves comparisons. And from being around the team, he's not somebody that you want to line up against.
No, he's a really uncomfortable at bat with how he can manipulate his pitches and just do those little tweaks that just get you right off balance. And he might not be your prototypical closer coming out of the pen throwing 100, but he's going to dice you up and attack you however he wants.
Yeah, and another guy has played, I believe he's played offense as well. So there's a lot of athleticism. You see many guys with the two-way profile here between Cleveland, between Hugas. We're going to talk about Hudson in a minute. So a lot of athleticism being injected not just to the field, but to the pitching staff as well. There we go. We got a comment from Chris, and he's just happy to be part of the team. So many great guys here. That's great to hear. I know we're excited to have him. Question from John Enriquez. I wonder if it's a long-lost cousin of mine. He wants to know, do we have any idea of who will be the midweek starter? So we mentioned 4 guys in the rotation. Obviously, only 3 weekend spots, so you can see one of those guys potentially fitting in a midweek role. You know, one guy we talked about before we went on air was Fisher, right, from, I believe he went to Davenport at Division III level. Last saw him going against him before he came to the University of Miami. He said, this guy's a player that we like. So when he became available in the portal, there was an aggressive move to get him. I heard Canes Cat 805s in the chat. I heard Fisher's velocity has increased quite a bit since he's been here. Just seeing he's a big guy. That's potential midweek arm right there.
Yeah, he moves really well on the mound. It's a very fluid motion, and he kind of profiles similar to Nick Robert in the way that it's a sinker ball, and he's going to attack you left to right, right? He's going to pitch to contact, let the defense do the work, and for a midweek starter, you can't really ask for much more.
Yeah, and he's experienced, right? So that helps as well. You do have one option you have here with such a deep pen is, pen days almost, right? You can have guys, multiple guys expected to play knowing they're going to go into the game playing because of the depth. Alex Giroux, a guy that played that kind of swingman role at Hawaii. Then you have the freshman we're going to talk about here in a second. So a lot of options. That's the biggest difference just from my amateur opinion being out here last year and seeing these guys through fall and through the practices so far this year is the amount of arms that are experienced and have talent. Just the depth of it is much, much different. I think you'll see that play out with some of these games. So the position battles I'm really watching here. Shortstop, right? So Tonio Jimenez last year, true freshman, doesn't work out, talented guy, UCF. You can see how I think he'll probably have a lot more success as he gets older there. Just there's a lot to be the freshman shortstop at the University of Miami. You replace that position, looking to improve. Clearly, you want to improve the performance at the plate. It was a black hole last year in the lineup, just that position in particular. Of course, most important defensive position on the field, along with catcher. So there's a lot of pressure on the glove. 2 guys to me really in the mix. One, a veteran who's playing shortstop really for the first time while also moving up a level here to the ACC. The other one, kind of a lifelong shortstop, but a true freshman. So both guys have question marks, but they have their talents. Let's start with Jake Ogden, Coral Reef grad, UNC Greensboro, guy that played well, I believe he was a Cape All-Star this year.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody with a lot of ability. What can you tell me about Jake?
Yeah, so obviously he's not a natural shortstop per se. He's more of the third base, first base type. But, I mean, this guy, he could play anywhere, right? Everyone on the team, the coaching staff, they call him a Swiss Army knife, right? He could play absolutely anywhere. The kid's a true gamer, right? Like, you could even put him behind the plate if you wanted to. I'm sure he would do a job, right? Everyone loves him. They know that he's going to do whatever's asked of him to win, right? I mean, you see it against Wake Forest right now. I mean, that's top ACC, not even top ACC, top college baseball talent right there. And he's getting the job done to win the game, right? So it really comes down to what you're really looking for at that shortstop spot, whether it's you want the safe defensive play and you're willing to sacrifice a bit. But based off everything we've heard from JD, Jake Ogden's going to be in the lineup no matter what, right? Even if he's not at shortstop, he's going to be a DH. He's going to be the leadoff and just be a real spark plug for this team. And it just comes down to whether you're willing to put him at shortstop just for maybe take a bit of defense out and free up that other spot for another hitter to back up Cuvée.
Yeah, and talk about a pure shortstop, Brandon Nagoti from the best high school in the state of Florida, Belen Jesuit Prep. Guy with some draft interest, not the biggest guy in the world, but from what I understand, there were some MLB teams, creeping around on him. Ultimately, he signed actually with Ohio State, but because Ohio State's coach moved on, he was freed up. Miami was able to slide in there. That was, quite frankly, very fortunate because I don't know where we'd be without Nagoti, at least from a depth perspective at the shortstop position. And talking to people about Nagoti, a lot of mutual connections being from Belen, baseball rat. His brother played in the majors. He's got multiple brothers that played at a high level. So he's somebody that just seems like the IQ in that aspect of the game, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, obviously. I feel that if he comes in to play shortstop in the middle of the season, it wouldn't be a surprise. I mean, the guy truly has that type of confidence to be able to handle playing shortstop at the Division I level at the University of Miami. And even in the fall, right, you expect the freshman to struggle a bit, to not hit too well. And he was consistently hitting fairly well. I believe he was I think it was in the 280, 290 mark when it came to his average, and hitting a lot of line drives, a lot of low line drives, high exit velocity. That's way better than you could ask for him at this stage of his career. And defensively, I mean, the kid's a natural shortstop, right? He has the confidence, he has the swagger to play short, whether it's to take it by the glove, toss it a second, and make the play. And it's a good problem to have, right? Whether you got the offense or the defense, both are going to do a job wherever they are.
Yeah, Montez is the brother of Alex Nagoti. Yes, it is. And, God forbid anything happens to Cuvée. Obviously, that's everybody's worst nightmare. But if for whatever reason, he gets nicked up, he misses some games, you can put Ogden at third base, and you can have Nagoti right there at shortstop. Another question about shortstop here from John Enriquez. Do you see Arizaga getting playing time this year? How do you see the outfield starting lineup shaking out? A ton of depth there. We're going to get to the outfield right now. With respect to Arizaga, this is again drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, Puerto Rico. Just seeing him out here, I mean, it's hard to miss him because of his size at shortstop. Nagoti, a much smaller guy, looks more like what you'd expect from a freshman shortstop. But this guy, big, you can see just physically why he was.
You can see the
drafted.
potential. Yeah, for sure. And he was, I believe, the number one player in Puerto Rico for this class, right? And just being on campus, he's already put on, I believe, 10 to 15 pounds through the weight program. And it's not just mass, right? It's lean mass that's helping him exit velocity. He's even dropped his 30-yard dash by about 0.3 seconds, which is incredible in such a short time period. So while he may not be directly in the competition for shortstop, I think that's more Nagoti and Ogden. You could for sure see all the tools, all the talent there to be a key player for this program for the years to come.
Yeah, we saw with Jimenez last year. Sometimes you put a talented guy there too early. It's a lot, right? So Nagoti to me strikes me as a guy that's much more ready to play right now, whereas with someone like him, upside, right, what he can be, don't want to rush him, don't want to get into a bad situation there. So let's move to the outfield because John asked about it, and we were that's one of our topics because shortstop's one battle, outfield, a lot of names there, a lot of different types of profiles. Let's start at center field because the highest profile name probably in the recruiting class along with Collazo is Mikey Torres out of Doral, the lefty. I took a video, Pete, pull up the video. Last time I was out here for a scrimmage in fall, he made a catch that was just unbelievable, and it was not like something that he doesn't do all the time. Talking to people, you heard JD say he was the best defensive center fielder since. I have to go all the way back. Let's see the comp. I know he had John Jay comps out of high school, but JD says he's the best defensive center fielder since the 90s. With the range he has. This is me behind the camera, so sorry about the bad film, but look how much ground this guy covers, man. Unbelievable. So you're a center fielder. You were right there alongside Mikey Torres. What does he bring to the table?
Yeah, obviously between him and Fabio Peralta, both can cover the gaps very well, right? I mean, we don't really have a senior or a veteran that can really cover that center field spot. You're going to have to rely on two freshmen to kind of battle it out there, but both can do the job really well. I mean, they're both super athletic, some of the best tools defensively in their class, right? And they have the confidence to be able to go gap to gap, to call off the corner outfielders, to go crashing into the wall, to make that game-saving play, right? So it's going to be a freshman there, we predict, no matter what, right? And they'll be at the bottom of the lineup, right? You're going to let them kind of settle in, get their feet wet offensively. You don't really expect too much out of them, but if they can play lights-out defense, defensive run saved is just as good as a defensive run scored.
And Danny Figueroa, that was the comp. So going back when I was in high school with the Danny Figueroa comp for Mikey Torres, and that's defensively. Now, offensively, the most impressive player, aside from Cuvée, that I saw in fall, Max Galvin from Oklahoma State, also went to Miami-Dade College. He's from Dallas, Texas, I believe, right? He's from Texas somewhere.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's from Texas.
It doesn't matter. He plays good.
Yeah, he's from Texas, went to Miami-Dade, hit over 400, balled out in Miami-Dade, goes to Oklahoma State. Didn't play this year, not because of performance. I think there were some eligibility issues, but goes to the Northwoods, which is one of the best summer leagues around. And there you see 13 home runs, led the league in home runs, and was just mashing the whole time. Sweet left-handed swing. He reminds me, not in terms of, he's a different player totally as far as like the handedness, the position, but just the attitude at the plate. It reminds me of Blake Sear, like just the swag and the energy he brings to the team. Again, different type of player on the field, but just the energy and the bat kind of reminds me of that impact, which is missing when you lose a Sear.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the count with Galvin. He's going up there looking to do damage, right? It could be a 3-0 count, and this coaching staff has the confidence to be, you could have the green light, go hit a double, right? And he's going to absolutely do it. And if he doesn't hit a double, it's probably going to be in the parking lot over right field, right? I mean, he completely balled out this summer in the Northwoods, right? Tons of extra base hits, tons of home runs, and if he can bring that here, which all signs are pointing to that from the fall, from the scrimmages, it would be absolutely incredible, right? We talk about whether Ogden's going to lead off. Personally, I'm a bit biased in the sense that I like to have a guy that can get some doubles, have some like spark, right? Have one of your best hitters lead off. But as long as he's in and around that top half of the lineup, you can't really ask for more.
Would it be fair to say, look, we're going to figure this out here at the Light when the real games start, but going into the season, if you had a bet, would you agree that the second best offensive player on paper going into the season behind Cuvée would be Galvin?
Yeah, I'd say it'd be between him, Ogden, and Hudson. And that's, again, all those guys are coming from the transfer portal, which is so important to back up Cuvée. And
Todd Hudson is going to be a guy who will be fun to watch. To me, the most interesting player on the team. When you look at his background, he comes from Liberty, 6'6". I mean, the guy looks like a tight end on the football team. He probably runs faster than the tight ends on the football team. He's the fastest player, would you say, on this team right now, right?
I'd say around at least.
So you're talking about potentially the fastest player on the team, 6'6". He's playing first base. Last year at Liberty, he was an outfielder and a pitcher, and he pitched a lot. So he was a true two-way player. Now shifting to the offensive side of the ball permanently and developing as a first baseman. That's going to be a transition, being an outfielder. But the size, the athleticism, it seems like he's making some strides.
Yeah, he's made a lot of good adjustments from the fall when he's been moved to first base to now. And just watching him just out here from warmups, he's looked great, scooping the ball, talking to the coaches, talking to Coop. I mean, they're all excited about him playing first, that he's really picked it up. He has the athleticism to do so. He has the mindset to do so. And that type of frame at first base is so good for confidence. Even if back to the Goatee, if you have a freshman at shortstop, to have that big of a target, it gives you confidence to throw the ball.
But we got almost 600 people on the live. There's a lot of excitement around the baseball program. Like and subscribe to this show. We are talking baseball every single week, but now we're getting close to the season. It's going to be more than that. Sebastian's going to be spearheading that coverage. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with baseball this year, just capturing the excitement around the team. No better place to be than the light. You guys know, if you're in this chat already, what an atmosphere it is. But again, if you like baseball and you don't follow us already, like and subscribe to this show, CanesInsight.com for free, our baseball forum, the Ron Frazier Memorial Baseball Board. It is hot. You're not going to find more discussion anywhere on the internet. Those game threads, a lot of ups and downs, living and dying with each pitch. A lot of emotional roller coasters. I know a lot of people in the chat know what I'm talking about, but really fun to share this experience with your fellow Canes fans. If you're not out here at the light, which of course, if you're here, why would it be out here? John Enriquez asking if we have a record prediction. Not yet. Let me see some of this here. I will say I predict my big picture prediction. And Sebastian, I'll give it to you after this. I think we'll be a lot better than last year, and I do think this is a tournament team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to record predictions, this, that, and the other, a lot of us are kind of just keeping it down, especially after what happened with the basketball team. You kind of want to let the games play out first and kind of see that. But I think right now, at minimum, you're looking at a team that will be over 500, will be better from last year, and will be suited to make a run if they get there, right? You talk about the teams that get hot at the right time. This team could definitely be that type of team with the spark plug players that they have, the guys that can get hot. And I feel like that's what that missed from last year's team. There wasn't really a guy besides Cuvée that you could be like, all right, we could rally around him. We could have these guys in lesser roles that could step up. And this year you have that. You have guys that can step up and be that type of player.
Yep. So a couple more guys I want to get to, because the outfield really is, to me, one of the positions that's going to define this team. There's so many names here. Derek Williams, Wichita State transfer, super fast hands. It seems like a little streaky maybe at the plate, but when he's hot, he might be one of those guys that can kind of carry your offense, similar to like a Torres last year. Somebody could just really get hot and kind of carry your team.
Yeah, I mean, with his profile, right? I mean, you obviously have the wind that goes right out to left field. If he can start getting balls into the air, get on a hot streak, I mean, this guy could be on a tear, right? Super quick hands, super athletic. This guy can hit. He could just flat out hit. And that's what we were excited about when he came into the team from the portal, what we've seen in the fall, and what we expect to continue as we go into the year, whether he's at right field or at the DH spot.
Yeah, and I really thought DH going into the year, just from, just talking to people and watching things, but now seeing him here, seems like he's poised to potentially take one of those outfield spots.
Yeah, I mean, that might be one of the most interesting position battles. I know we've been over center field and shortstop, but that kind of right field / DH spot where you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 guys battling for those 2 spots, that could be really interesting because they all profile so different between Derek Williams, Bobby Marsh, and Jake Kulikowski.
You talk about left center fielders. We talked about Mikey Torres as true freshman. There's another left center fielder, defense-oriented, true freshman who could be playing a lot. Is Fabio Peralta. You heard JD mention him twice during the media availability on his own. So that, to me, caught my attention, just the fact that JD's been mentioning him more and more and suggesting that at a minimum, there's a guy you're going to see in games as a defensive replacement, even as a true freshman.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is very similar to Mikey Torres in the sense that they both cover the gaps very well. They're both very confident with their glove. They have that swagger about them where you're like, that this guy, come game time, he's going to go out and make every play wherever it is, right? And we've seen from the scrimmages, even offensively, he's been able to wreak havoc on the base paths, whether it's dropping down a bunt, kind of just making the adjustment to that next D1 pitching level. And both of them, I really could see that battle keep going. If, let's say, one of them really struggles very badly, you could see the other one kind of flip-flop in there. But I don't think it's going to be a case where they're looking over each other's shoulder. They're really pushing each other to be better every day.
One matchup, this is not direct competition, but I kind of, in my head, I see it a little bit as a competition between two lefty. You got Torres and Peralta, similar players. They're out there going for similar opportunities. The other battle I'm watching the outfield, Bobby Marsh, Penn State transfer, lefty hitter, Jay Kulikowski coming back from Tampa. You saw him as a freshman have his moments. Looks totally different body-wise. That to me seems like, I don't want to call it a battlers or teammates, but two guys that are similar in what they might bring to the team from the left side of the plate.
Yeah, obviously you have Jake returning from last year, right? He had a couple of those moments where I remember the home run that he hit. That was really important. He's basically completely transformed his body. He looks absolutely massive, right? And he's going to be a leader in this clubhouse no matter what, whether he's playing DH, right field. He's going to be a leader, right? A lot of these guys look up to him, especially the outfielders. And again, lefty bat, whether he can platoon against righties, no matter what it is, he's going to be key to this team. And Bobby Marsh, right? He just in the captain's scrimmage the other day, I think he had 4 or 5 hits, I believe. And at Penn State, he could hit both sides of arms very well. He didn't have to be platooned. He could hit lefty. He could hit righty. He just flat out rakes. I believe he hit 300 against both sides, and that's something that if you put him at a DH spot, that's so key. You see in the home run against FAU earlier this fall, I mean, he could hit. He just flat out hit.
Bobby Barrels. This video is taken from our boy Canes Cat Heat 305 there. Chat regular showing this opposite field swing right here. But yeah, that's something you need, man. You mentioned Todd Hudson. He's another guy that loves to go opposite field from the left side of the plate. So that's an area of the field that you can see get us some work. John Enrique is asking about Vestergaard, who'll be coaching third base. We talked about this earlier. We think Dominguez. Well, we got the confirmation. Dominguez will be coaching third base. So there you go. That's official. Some other guys wanted to get to is the freshman, right? So we talked about some of the freshmen going to these positions, but 3 guys that we heard JD mention specifically today during the media availability. These are not names that were brought to him. These are names that he brought up on his own, which is always to me kind of a sign that there's some expectation with these guys, and they'll be monitored closely here as we gear up for the season. Starting with a left-handed freshman from Tampa that's generating a ton of buzz, particularly lately. I feel the buzz with him has picked up big time. You were the first one to tell me about it before I even heard about his name anywhere. You were saying, hey, man, I know we're getting a lot talking about some of these other guys. You got to talk about this guy. That is Mike Fernandez from Tampa, the left-hander. JD mentioned him as a bullpen option. Dorian, I think, mentioned him as well as a guy that's impressed him. So what do you like about Fernandez?
Yeah, I mean, he just has such a repeatable motion, right? He's on the smaller end of a pitcher, right? And a lot of the times with those smaller guys, you see them have to reach back, kind of just have to go empty the tank every time. But with Mikey, it's very repeatable, it's very fluid, and the ball just jumps, right? I believe in one of the scrimmages that I went to, I have a video of him actually striking out Cuvée twice against the top hitters. He has that confidence. He has that, not really arrogance, but just the idea that he can go after anyone and be confident in doing so, right? And his fastball jumps, right? And his best pitches might even not even be his fastball. They might be the curveball and the changeup that he has, that if he can develop it, I mean, he can go so far.
What velo do you think we could expect from him as a freshman?
Probably in that like 91 to 93 range, I believe. And again, with Soto, you might even see jumps mid-season. He's that good of a strength coach.
You can see it here just watching. It really does not look that strained. It's just smooth and easy and athletic. You got Canes Cat saying Mikey's at 92, 93 last Thursday. Hopefully that continues. I mean, that'll play. That'll definitely play. You think about also, you lose Schlesinger. Mm-hmm. Aside from Evans, there's not a lot of lefties around here. So there's a huge opportunity for a lefty like this to get immediate opportunities.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rafe. I think actually Ryan Ashford can kind of grow into that role. He has that sort of funky delivery, and he impressed many in the fall, right? He went after top hitters in the lineup, attacked them well, and we could see how he develops. And I think he could end up, by the end of the season, you start talking about him into that conversation.
Switching to the right side, some really, really impressive righty arms. AJ Siskar, another name mentioned, I believe this during the media availability by JD. Big guy, just looks the part, man. Just seeing him throw. The righties this year, and I'll throw in Lachi Collazo, the highly touted freshman. A lot of people thought might have had MLB options out of high school, ends up turning those down, going to the University of Miami. I think both of those guys from the right-hand side, throw Tate Darius into that mix as well. They look different to me physically than the right-handed freshman that we brought in last year that ultimately left the program. It's just a little bit of a different physical profile to me.
Yeah. They obviously look the part of being Division I pitchers, right? But you could also see that they still have more in the tank, which is a very good sign, right? I feel like with a lot of the pitchers from the past, they kind of peaked when they got here. These guys still have room to grow, which is a really good sign.
Yeah, you mentioned so Kane's Cat saying that Ashford was 93 to 94 on Thursday. So, you're seeing these numbers tick up. We haven't even mentioned in terms of the name, all the shows we've done. I don't think we've talked about Staniak, who redshirted last year, and he was, from what I heard, throwing over 95 last week. So that's another name, and we talked about it off air.
That's what's so intriguing about this team, right? I mean, you have a guy that didn't pitch at all last year, redshirted, didn't even pitch in the fall due to injury, and comes out in the captain scrimmage throwing 96. That's absolutely amazing for this team.
By the way, so correction from Kane's Cat, he threw a 5. The guy that was throwing 93 to 94 on Thursday was Siskar, which that to me, that checks out with how he looked in fall. He was throwing it hard. But question from John Enriquez, how are the catchers looking defensively? Depends, right? You have different ages. So you have one guy in Tanner Smith who's Oregon State, been around at the highest levels of college baseball, period, and is a defense-first guy to begin with. So I think his level on defense, both because of the experience and just the type of player he is, a glove-first catcher, he's at extremely high level. Behind him, you have 3 freshmen, ups and downs. I would say of those 3 freshmen, the guy that's jumped out to me, and again, another guy you heard JD mention as a pleasant surprise during the media availability earlier today, Ethan Puig.
Yeah. I mean, he came in as a third baseman, recruited as a third baseman, but actually made a move to catcher when Tanner Smith was out during the fall. They wanted to see how he would profile there. And by all accounts, he's exceeded everyone's expectation there. He's looked confident. He's looked fluid. I know he's practiced there in the past with some coaches. He never actually caught at the high school level, but he's practiced it. He understands it. And now you have the 4th catcher that you were kind of looking for to be really safe when it comes to that position.
Yeah. Tanner Smith, I want to just on him, talking to people, I know obviously we're on the Canes Insight, so we see the forums, we kind of get in touch with what the fans are talking about. I think the coaches are maybe a little more excited about Tanner Smith right now than the fans, because some people look at the stats and they say, hits under 250. You had Scanlon have a big year at the plate last year. But what this guy brings to a pitching staff and just to the calm he brings to the team. I know there was a lot of people were losing sleep over who the catcher was going to be this year, because that was a huge hole in the team. To bring in a guy like Tanner Smith from Oregon State, I think has been just huge beyond what you might see in the box score. Now he can hit home runs. It's not like he's a non-hitter. We've seen him hit home runs in big games, but the glove, I think, is maybe a bigger deal. And the arm, by the way, I think he threw 50% out last year, which was a major weakness for Miami last year on our side. It seems like that impact might be understated a bit by those who are just looking at box scores.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to those up-the-middle positions, right, you can obviously lean more towards defensive first, but especially at the catcher position, right? You see the teams that make the World Series in the MLB, make the College World Series in the NCAA. They have catchers that are leaders and mostly defensive first.
Yeah, and again, the experience. Oregon State, we all know what they bring, the catcher position too. I mean, one of the reasons why he was able to make that move is because they have a lot of guys with a lot of talent, but even within that group, from what I understand, Smith had the best glove. And this is the program that produced Adley Rutschman. I mean, this is big time baseball. So I think that's going to be the sneakiest addition to me, because just looking at last year's team, there were a lot of holes, and that was a huge one behind the plate. So I think that's something that you're going to notice going out to the light, sitting right there behind the plate. It's going to look different. When we talk about some of these young pitchers, it's got to be a relief to have a catcher like that's experienced.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that know, the real ones that know, they will know the impact that he has. The guys that are there every day watching him frame, watching him take the timeouts to calm down the pitchers, get them back in the mindset, get them to hit their spots. I mean, his contribution to this team, I mean, words can't really state how important it is.
Yeah, I was sitting next to former MLB executive right behind the plate during fall watching Tanner Smith. And one thing he said is, notice how he catches the breaking stuff, because sometimes younger catchers, they'll catch the breaking stuff too early and it'll be a ball. Whereas if you let it kind of go in a little bit, hit it for a strike. So just the little things like that was what this MLB person noticed about Tanner Smith. Kyle's joining the live. We almost got 750 people live right now talking Canes baseball, man. So appreciate you guys. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. We'll be talking Canes baseball nonstop. It is a passion, and we'll be really breaking it down. Kyle's asking who are the 3 weekend starters. We talked about the 4 that we think are going to be the main ones in the mix. We'll see the separation. I would say of those 4, when you talk about Nick Robert, Brian Walters, Griffin Hugas, and Rob Evans. Evans has an advantage for having started, but I think he's at a disadvantage just because he missed a lot of time due to injury. He's fine now, but just in terms of what we see, the opening series, starting Valentine's, I think that will put him a little behind through no fault of his own, but we'll see. That's why they're practicing. We're still figuring all that out. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, if you were to have 2 penciled in, you would have Brian Walters and Nick Robert. Obviously, Walters expected, and by all accounts, JD is leaning towards Robert being a weekend starter. And as you said, Rob Evans had a bit of injury. He might not get that Sunday role. But by the time the season gets through, I could see Evans slotting into that Sunday role and actually moving Griffin Hugas back into the bullpen because, that arm's just electric.
Yeah, and look, we'll see how it plays out, right? You have options, which I think last year you didn't worry about who the top 3 starters were because they were all 4th-round draft picks. But when you get to midweek, right, and you talk about other starters, there was just a tremendous drop-off. Massive. Whereas here, I think even as you get into like a 5th option, whether it's a Carson Fisher or, you're going more with a bullpen day, we haven't even talked about Reese Lumpkin, who was a starting pitcher at Winthrop, who's out here now, who's got size, he's 6'5", has velocity as well, right-handed pitcher from Winthrop, started a ton of games. So I think your options from a starting rotation are just so much more on top of having a better bullpen.
Yeah, that was one of our biggest problems last year, right? You would have midweek games that you expect to really dominate, and then you would be in either close games or even lose some of those games. And I think that this year you're going to have the confidence with your pitchers to go in there and kind of dominate those games, and even dominate so much that you can give the freshmen the opportunities to get ready for the big games later in the year.
So last question here before we get out. Again, almost 800 on the live. Appreciate you guys. From John Enriquez. What do you think the identity of the team will be? Pitching, defense, or something else? I'll let you answer last. For me, I think pitching depth is definitely something that stands out, at least in contrast to last year's team. I would say just kind of hunger. You don't have a lot of guys that, last year you had some guys that had success the year before and they were coming in with a different attitude. Here you're talking about guys from lower levels coming up, so they got a lot to prove in that aspect. Of course, those are the players who were on the team last year have a lot to prove because the team didn't perform that well. Maybe it's a reliever who wants to show he's a starter, but you have a lot or maybe it's a guy like Fernandez who's not the highest rated recruit but wants to show that he belongs. I think there's a lot of hunger and guys trying to prove themselves this year as opposed to, that lingering Miami legacy of, hey, we're here, we're going to go to the tournament every single year. We're not even worried about it. It's more of a chip on the team.
Yeah, the team's obviously going to be playing with that chip on their shoulder, which you want, right? You want those guys to be hungry throughout the year, and I think that would be the main identity of this team. Like, everyone wants to bring Miami back to what it should be. But when it comes to a side of the field that I think will be the identity, it's going to be that middle of the order around Cuvée, right? If they can step up, this team completely changes from last year. Because I think if they step up, can't pitch around Cuvée. You have to pitch to him. At minimum, you'll see the same production or around the same production that you saw from him last year. You get those guys to step up. You now have guys on base for him, more RBIs, guys behind him to drive him in after an extra base hit. That middle of the order is going to be so key. So that power in that lineup, it's going to completely transform this team. And more on the behind the scenes of it, the identity of power and speed, that's something that this program is going to go towards, because last year you had one guy with over 10 home runs, Cuvée, and one guy with 10 stolen bases in Jacoby Long. That doesn't happen anymore at the collegiate level. And with Nick Soto, you're bringing a guy that specializes in power and speed, and the results are already showing.
We're excited, getting close here. Valentine's Day, less than a month away. 3 weeks away, right? So we're geared up. We're excited. We're here at the light. We'll get ready for the scrimmage. So next time we get on this show, we'll be talking about some of the things we saw here. We are going to be going every single week. Plus, it's going to be a lot of baseball content this season. So if you're new to the channel, new to CanesInsight.com, like and subscribe, sign up for free on Canes Insight. We're trying to build this baseball community, which is already huge. If you come around here, you know what it is. So gonna keep adding on, bringing people together. Appreciate everybody on the show. Go Canes.